This is Dairy Row, 10 concentrated animal feeding operations lining I-10 just south of Las Cruces, each pumping out an estimated $5.8 million worth of milk every single year. According to New Mexico State University, New Mexico dairies generate $180 million in economic impact annually in Doña Ana County alone. But that's not all they're producing. In New Mexico, dairy farms discharge 6.4 million gallons of waste and feces every day. That's equivalent to the waste generated by about 800,000 people. Rio Grande Sierra Club Conservation Coordinator Dan Lorimer says when dairy farms don't handle this animal discharge properly by lining waste pits and discharge lagoons, or too much of the waste is used to fertilize neighboring crops, it ends up seeping into the soil and contaminating the groundwater.
Well, the quality of our groundwater is highly important to us. We are an arid state, we're in a drought.
Groundwater is where 90% of New Mexicans like Victor Montoya get their water. He lives downhill from Dairy Row in Anthony, New Mexico.
And I lived there my entire life too, and I didn't know that well was contaminated. And I was drinking water out of that well. Well, my entire neighborhood was. And nobody told us it was contaminated. We kept drinking out of it.
New Mexico Environment Department Water Studies and Monitoring revealed high levels of nitrates in Anthony, New Mexico's well water. The Environmental Protection Agency says nitrates can cause blue baby syndrome. As oxygen is limited, babies vomit, have seizures, and even die. Dan Lorimer has worked with some Anthony families who have settled with dairies following court cases and are not able to speak about it on camera. A Nebraska study found high levels of nitrates in well water increased risks of some cancers, like non-Hodgkin lymphoma, which Montoya's son Colton battled 3 years ago.
My wife cut his hair, and then all of a sudden it was like a mosquito bite. And the mosquito bite just kept growing and growing until a point where it was a bump here, a bump here, and a bump here. And one of the most powerless moments in your life as a father is holding your son, knowing the fact that you can't do nothing about that pain.
In 2011, New Mexico enacted regulations to protect groundwater from dairy waste contamination. Lorimer says the waste infrastructure standards and water monitoring policies are on par with many other states, but implementing the rules poses increased expense to the dairy industry. Lorimer says since Susana Martinez became governor, the Environment Department has not been enforcing the rules.
This version of our Environment Department seems as interested in economic development as our Economic Development Department.
Recent New Mexico Environment Department data indicates that more than 60% of the state's dairies are polluting groundwater. The department's public information officer declined an interview with KRWG, and the dairy farmers of New Mexico didn't respond to interview requests. But both are expected to appear at meetings at the end of the year with proposed revisions to the dairy regulations. Lorimer says if those changes are approved, it will only further compromise New Mexico's scarce water resources.
The science that supported the rules that are on the book hasn't been superseded by new science.
Montoya says while the state is not enforcing the law, the community is working to protect its water. Through grants and a minor tax increase, Anthony, New Mexico has been able to secure a $12 million reverse osmosis system that purifies the city's municipal water.
Ms. Martinez needs to think about the future in New Mexico with the limited water we have and the limited space and land we have. And if she's willing to sell our soul to the highest bidder, then she's going to have to live with the responsibility of the communities.
Montoya says the dairy industry may be a major source of economic activity, but it's operating at the expense of communities like his. For KRWG, I'm Simon Thompson.